So other events in Thatcher's foreign policy. Well, Grenada was invaded by the USA in 1983 without consulting Britain. Grenada was in the Commonwealth. And this was to overthrow a communist regime that had taken over the previous Marxist leader, Maurice Bishop. This is embarrassing to Thatcher, and Howard said the day before in the Commons that he didn't know of an invasion plan. Howard was Foreign Secretary at the time. The special relationship was patched up in 1986 when US planes bombed Libya from British bases. The Cabinet disagreed and Labour did so, and so did Thatcher initially, but they were going to bomb anyway. Plus the Libyans are supplying the IRA. The press were unhappy, the public... Well, Walsh Atkins says they were happy, but a Mori poll at the time said 71% of the public were not happy, especially as it resulted in civilian casualties. In Rhodesia, the black Bishop Muzorewa was now Prime Minister, but Mugabe was not involved in elections. Muzorewa was seen as a front for Smith. Thatcher had little interest in Rhodesia, but had to deal with it as an ex-member of the Commonwealth. The only real option was to give the Marxist Mugabe black rule, as Smith was racist, despite knowing that this would cause chaos, and the Commonwealth countries wanted black majority rule. The left wing were for giving in to Mugabe, the right wing were against it. The Queen was used at meetings to calm them down, and the Lancaster House Agreement was reached in 1979. It was a diplomatic success, but ironic that anti-communist Thatcher helped a Marxist take power. Elsewhere in the Commonwealth, Thatcher resisted demands for sanctions for South Africa over apartheid. There was criticism from the EU and Commonwealth leaders over this. In Ireland, there had been dirty protests and hunger strikes in the prisons where IRA prisoners were, and Bobby Sand had died on a hunger strike. In 1984, there was a Brighton bomb where Thatcher was the target, and it actually killed some of her Conservative ministers. However, Thatcher carried on with the speech the next day and broke off negotiations between UK and Republic of Ireland over security in Northern Ireland, as she said she didn't want to negotiate under duress. The Anglo-Irish Agreement was reached in 1985, and that said that there could be no change in the status of Northern Ireland without a majority of its own inhabitants agreeing so. The Unionists saw it as a step towards an all-Ireland solution, and they were outraged that the South would have any role in the government of the North of Ireland. 15 Unionist MPs resigned their seats, and the agreement brought little security despite the RUC and the Southern Irish Police working closer together. Finally, let's have a look at some historical interpretation of Thatcher's foreign policy. Lynch, talking about her manner, said such techniques irritated Thatcher, and she was not reluctant to show it. Lynch also said that Thatcher was more popular abroad than she was at home. Defenders of Thatcher said she was anti-trade unions when they threaten liberty, but pro-trade unions when they defended liberty, like Solidarity. Peter Clark emphasises a special relationship between her and America and says it inflated her international standing. Chris Rowe says her cabinet ministers thought she had backtracked since 1985 on Europe, and Rowe emphasises change in Thatcher, or possibly change in Europe, saying that only after 1986 did she become anti-Europe. Rowe says that as Thatcher became stronger and less tolerant, her true views on Europe came through. He also says that public and press opinion caused her to go against Europe, especially the Murdoch-owned press. Derek Murphy and Stephen George argued that Thatcher helped Britain's standing in Europe from her combative manner. And Derek Murphy argues that Thatcher didn't want to tell the public about what she'd done over the Single European Act, and claimed later that she had been deceived. Hugo Young says that the Bruges speech was when Thatcher could keep her hatred of Europeans to herself no longer. Carrington, Pym and Howe all criticised her pro-American stance after their departure as Foreign Secretary. Michael Foot criticised it as well. Tim Haim says, while support for America was unpopular, it did Britain no harm at all. Patrick Walsh Atkins says a special relationship meant more to her than it did to them. They were more concerned with Germany and Europe. The special relationship died after World War I, and this was a marriage of convenience. She called the relationship very, very special. Selden and Collins suggested that she used the EEC budget wrangles to stamp her authority in her first year. And Ken Morgan calls the Lancaster House Agreement over Rhodesia a huge surrender for Thatcher, bowing to Foreign Office and Commonwealth pressure. Howe said that Anglo-Irish Agreement set up the cornerstone of future relationship between the countries, although Thatcher was disappointed with it as the Unionists alienated for little reward. Selden and Collins say that Thatcher had more success in arresting world decline. The greatest boost was the relationship with the USA. However, they say that she failed to establish a clear British position on Europe. Andrew Marr says her hopes of free market Europe were betrayed by the Continentals, abetted by her own Foreign Office. That's it for Thatcher and foreign policy. I'll see you next time for Thatcher and Society.